you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way.
36 yards for the win.
This
Here comes a big chance. The shot
is
this the dagger?
the neutral zone.
This is as good as it gets.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson, and somehow I still have a voice to do today's podcast. I was at the Ontario Bocce Championships in Kingston, Ontario, and I was supposed to do the PA announcement work, and then they said at 9 a.m. on the Saturday morning, hey, how do you feel about doing that as well as commentating 13 games throughout the weekend? So I did that, and it was a good time, and we congratulate everybody that competed and was successful, and it was a good time. So very, very good stuff. I'm going to throw at the panel a bit later on a topic of discussion we had amongst some of us during this competition. So stay tuned for all that, but I'll tell you what's coming up on the rest of the show. Coming up on today's show, we are excited to be joined by friend of the show, Canadian canoe and kayak athlete Brianna Hennessy, who recently qualified for the 2024 Paralympic Games, and she will be going to Paris. We also wrap up the Olympic Games. I'm joined by Cameron and Josh. Here come your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Are you interested in coaching in para sports but feel overwhelmed on where to start? Cruiser Sports is excited to announce the launch of our coach mentorship program for the 2024 and 25 season. Successful applicants will be paired up with a Cruisers mentor coach where they will learn through hands-on practical experience and be supported in taking coach education training. No previous coaching experience is required. For more information, please follow Cruiser Sports on all social media platforms.
Save the date. Ontario Para Network, in collaboration with Variety Village and Parasport Ontario, will be hosting a 2024 Paralympic Games watch party. Join us on Saturday, September 7th, 2024 at Variety Village for an exciting day of cheering on our incredible Paralympic athletes. Follow the Ontario Para Network on all social media platforms for more details. And of course, we will give you some of those handles as the show continues.
We congratulate Team Canada as the Olympic Games were incredible for Canada. Canada received 27 medals in total, 9 gold, 7 silver, and 11 bronze. This is good for 12th place overall. This we will discuss a bit later on in the program, but I will tell you that this is the best games that Canada has had in the summer, if it be not a boycotted Olympic Games. So congratulations to Team Canada, and we will talk about the final weekend a little bit later on in the program. Those are your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social media, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this ball game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR.
Strike!
Pitch and a strike. Hey, gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. And the Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.
We're going to jump into an interview that Josh and I had the pleasure of doing earlier this week, or last week as you're listening to the podcast. We're going to be joined by Brianna Hennessy, who is a canoe kayak athlete. Please enjoy the interview. We are pleased to be joined by a friend of the program, canoe athlete Brianna Hennessy, and she joins us because she recently qualified for the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games. Brianna, so nice to have you back with us, and we're looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Brianna, can we start off just by telling us a little bit about what it's taken to actually qualify for Paris?
So we have in the para-canoe side, para-kayak side, so it's a 200-meter sprint, and we had our two major qualifiers. So we had a World Championships last year in Germany, which was the first chance qualifier. That's where the top 6 countries locked in their spots, their quota spots, I guess you'd call it. And then at this World Cup that just passed, because it's a qualifier, they called it a World Championships, but it's technically our World Cup in Hungary. That was when the last 4 spots were locked in. So there's 10 spots total. So I was lucky to lock in my spot in August of last year. So for Canada. So then we did our domestic trials this year, and then that locked in the athlete spot. So now I'm locked in, ready for Paris.
Awesome. Does all of that change your training preparation when you have to go through all these qualifiers and, last chance, this and that? Does it change your preparation to do it, or is it the same old, or does the nerves just get a little bit higher as we go deeper into the process?
I mean, this will be my second Paralympic Games, right? So the first one, I qualified at the last chance qualifier because I was so new at the time. I was lucky to even qualify for Tokyo. This time, we still have a lot to learn, but we've sort of been gaining a lot of experience, our team, and working super hard since then. So this time we were lucky enough to sort of get that qualification quota spot out of the way early, so that we could get back to training and start sort of cruising through that. And then that way, when we did go to, the World Cup, or I guess, like I said, called the World Championships that, happened in May in Hungary, we were able to sort of try some new things and focus on some new things because there was zero risk, right? Even if I fell out of my boat and tried a different kind of start, who cares? It didn't impact my quota spot kind of thing, right? So it was kind of cool to go through that this time and have that opportunity, just to work on some things and to try and polish some things while we were still on the world stage kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there was no falling out of the boat. That's a good thing.
Not this time anyway.
Exactly. Can you walk us through that qualifying race and tell us what that moment was like?
Whew, I think what ends up happening, right, is when since Tokyo, our team has acquired, 10 world medals in para-canoe and para-kayak combined on the world stage. So, the shift starts to happen where there's more of an expectation, from your country or your team during this learning process. So, the pressure is a little bit higher. We already have the extra precision in this sport, but now I feel like there's the pressure and precision, coming in hot, off the press this time leading up to Paris. But I feel the most confident and consistent in my canoe compared to kayak, where I have a little bit more trouble with my balance and my lack of lateral core. So for me, going into that race, was probably one of the first times where I was more sure of myself that I could pull something like that off, especially knowing that the focus was not necessarily to podium. The focus was to get that quota spot. So, that was a top 6, not a top 3. So I tried to kind of find things like that to kind of take the pressure off of me, even though there's in other ways it was creeping up,
And so this is your second games, as you mentioned. What for you is the difference between this qualification for Paris versus the first time we did it? What's different, if any?
I think the first time, I'm still, one of the newest kids on the block in this sport compared to, all the athletes I'm competing against. But I think that, before I was so new that we were just trying to see what we could make stick to the wall. Whereas, now I've been trying to develop some of these techniques, and precision pieces and endurance speed and my strength building and all of these kind of pieces that I'm hoping will come together in those moments. And so I have a little bit more awareness now on the course. I've been through some of those, growing pains. So I'm hoping that, our team can pull something together, when it comes down to it in Paris. Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of what training is like for you now, between say now and when you head to Paris?
I mean, I guess there's always that extra element when I get asked this question, right, in comparison to Olympic athletes and para-athletes, and in that, usually on the para side, we have all those sort of ongoing health issues that we're struggling with, right? So, for me, I always talk about how my, para sport is my ongoing and active recovery and rehab, and it will always be that way. It's also my, my purpose in my life, my reason to get out of bed, my how I identify, as an elite athlete, like I did before my accident. So there's, just some of these extra pieces that you go through, that are maybe kind of behind the scenes, right? That lots of people don't realize. So my training is different every day. It's whatever I can give. And I go over the spoons theory with my family and friends, so they kind of understand that, people with chronic nerve pain, or health issues, we wake up with a different amount of spoons every day, and we just lay out whatever we have. So each training day I feel is different. It's a combination of, in my canoe or my kayak, and just giving my coach everything I can on the water, when I can be there. So, yeah.
One of the biggest talking points going into the Paralympics for Paris was that now we're talking equal funding for any medal winners in Paris for the Paralympics. What does that mean to you, first of all? And secondly, what do you think it means to the community as a whole?
I mean, it's absolutely wonderful that we're getting closer and closer to, equality in sport, in different ways, whether it's gender, whether it's, through disabilities, and just feeling like our medal is worth just as much as an Olympic medal, melts my heart. And we still have lots more steps to get there. But, I feel like that's a huge, huge thing towards the movement of that. And, we're all so grateful that this is even a possibility for us right now. And, we saw in Tokyo at the games there, it was the first time that the U.S. did it. So I was hoping that Canada would kind of, follow suit, and that we weren't that far behind. You still look at the medal bonuses in Canada compared to lots of the other countries. And, a medal bonus, even a gold isn't even enough money to last for 2 training camps for my sport. Right. So it's wonderful, and we're super excited. But, at the end of the day, it still doesn't cut it, So we're hoping that, this kind of thing keeps growing on the Olympic and Paralympic side. Right. So at the end of the day, we're all a big team representing the flag with lots of pride. And hopefully we can keep this going forward. So, yeah.
Now, I'm a bit curious because, as the three of us all know, we have tried to coordinate a time when we could do this interview together. And you are a very, very busy person. And certainly there's personal stuff which we would never ask you. But I am curious, given that this is your second games, are there other responsibilities or other things that have kind of come up that maybe you weren't expecting going into this games, other than just your training that you need in order to compete?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I lost my best friend last year. I lost my mother, and it was very unexpected. And so, it kind of put our whole family through a whirlwind, and I'm still very much grieving, and it's shattered my heart into a million pieces. I feel very lost without her. She was my soundboard. She was my Wonder Woman. She was who I looked up to as a role model growing up. She was, an elite athlete in national level football for over a decade. So was my dad, but my parents were my role models growing up. And, my mom was that sort of image for me of strength and resilience and tenacity. And she taught me all those things. And, I was able to apply them through sport. I was able to learn more about them through sport and gain the discipline, to carry those on. And that's what I used, as we've spoken before about, getting through my accident and trying to continue my recovery and just deciding that I was worth it and to fight for some independence back in my life. But, especially with, my health condition, I got a lot of support from my mom in many ways. I really do hope that, when I'm there, that she's in the sky, looking down and very proud of me, and that I can feel her with me. And, I always talk about how my mom just loved dancing so much. And, I just hope that she's dancing in the wind with me down the course and just giving me that, extra edge to maybe be able to podium for our country. And, I plan to carry her ashes in the boat with me. So we're going to go down that race course together.
It's amazing.
It's really amazing how much, family is supportive. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that family has a different level of support. I'm not going to say it's more, I'm not going to say it's less, but it's a different level of support comparative to the Olympic side because of all those various things you're referring to and the challenges we go through and the trials and tribulations and all those things. And we spoke a couple of years ago at the summit, and still to this day, my favorite interview, even though we were told by people that we were too loud over from Bell, and it was like, that's fine, I'm just enjoying my time with the athlete, and that's the way it works. And I think the community is small and it is that way, and I think people need to recognize the fact that family does have a different level of support on the para side than the Olympic side, and I truly believe that.
Absolutely. And that's something else too that I quickly learned about the, para sport in general community. Everyone's just so close, and there's just that layer that gets taken out. I mean, I grew up in elite level sports on the able-bodied side, and it seemed that, for example, on my high level hockey teams or with rugby, it's, you had to, if you were a rookie, you had to prove yourself before you got any respect on your team, and earning that respect and just, that different side of things. And it's not good or bad. It's just the culture of it. Whereas in parasport, we all recognize that, sometimes I'm in a rugby gym and there's, 200 guys in a rugby gym, and, 90% of them should be dead. That's the reality. We've all survived death. We've all fought through trauma in all different ways. Some of us are born with it. Some of us, acquire an injury later on in our life. And we all relate on that same level. And we all have that understanding that we're all fighters. And there's just that common respect, that's unspoken, but it's there, and you have that feeling, and it's a mutual respect. And I feel like, when I was in Tokyo, we didn't really get to connect with a lot of the athletes because of COVID. And that's a big part for me, is just developing those friendships. I try and talk with, even my competitors, it's game time when we're on that, race course, but the rest of the time, we're sisters going through something, traumatic. And we've all decided on one reason to keep going when we had a million to give up on. So I think that there's something just extra special with the bond between the athletes. It's almost like we're a big family, and that's something that I never experienced in able-bodied sports in the same way. Nothing close.
It's interesting you bring that up about the side of community that exists on the athletic side of things, and for me, I look at it deeper. I went to the games in 2008 and 2012, and we were there from the beginning to the end. And that's changed since 2020 or 2021, however you want to look at the Tokyo Games. But that's changed because of COVID, and everybody's got to leave the village when their competition's over. And that seems to be remaining the same. I was talking to another teammate of mine going to Paris, and he told me that once his competition's over, 48 hours and out you go. And right. I think there's a whole level of experience that athletes are missing, in that you're there for your competition, but that they're going to support athletes in other sports, and maybe going to watch, whatever sport, name the sport, is so gone. And that level of community, it really upsets me. It really makes me mad, because there's that level that doesn't exist anymore that I got to experience that you guys, it seems, will never experience.
I mean, honestly, my competition is the last 3 days of the games, the Paralympics, the 6th, 7th, and 8th of September. We were told that because we are competing, 30, 40 minutes out from Paris, we're not even staying in the Olympic Village when we are there. We're staying in a hotel just to be, logistically closer to where we're competing. But we've been told that we may not even be able to make the closing ceremonies. And honestly, I'm still beside myself about it. I know it's something, you're not supposed to be worrying about the things you can't control when you're going to the games, from the environment, and the weather, in my case, specifically for my sports, or things like this. But for me, that's a big deal. I have lots of para friends. I'm a big part of the wheelchair rugby community, and I would love to go, support them. They're going to be out of all my rugby guys are going to be out of the village before they can even come have a chance to come support me, let's say during my events, or me going to support them during theirs. And, I'm not even near the village kind of thing, or having access to that. Right. So apparently there might be a shuttle back and forth, but which, possibly on some of those other days people are competing. But, that honestly is breaking my heart that I might not even be. I think we may be able to stay in the Olympic Village for one night after we finish competing, and we may miss closing ceremonies because, as you know, it's quite a process. It's about an 8-hour process, right? For the athletes, it's like about 4 hours to even get in the stadium. Then it's like a 4-hour closing ceremony. So you really got to be available really early in the day and ready to go. So I'm very upset about this.
Yeah, it really makes me, sad when I think about it, because my greatest memories, aside from the competition and finishing 10th as an 18-year-old, okay, that's all well and good. And those are the things that are going to stick in my head, obviously. But the memories that I can take away is going to support, my fellow teammates and making the bond. And you walk into a place and, oh, you're so-and-so from Boccia, and you're,
right.
How was your competition? Or like you're walking into the Costco size, food court, if you will. And you walk in and immediately how people do, because
right.
we all wear our emotions on our face or on our sleeve, and some of us are lucky to wear medals around our neck. So then obviously, oh, okay, how this went. But right. It just makes me so angry about that, athlete camaraderie that just doesn't exist. And Josh, as a fellow athlete, what I'm talking about that, camaraderie that's just there all the time.
Absolutely. I am a track and field athlete during the summer, and one of the things I enjoy doing is going and supporting my friends who are on the racetrack or who are ambulatory throwers. It's part of the experience. And at some of these bigger competitions, I'll even go and I'll check out an event that I've not experienced before. That's how I learned about bocce.
Right.
One of the other things too that I wish that the Olympic committee and Paralympic committees would decide to do is make it so that the opening ceremonies are on one day, give everybody a day off, and
right.
then get the competition started. And the reason I'm saying that is because, again, that's one of the greatest moments of being able to parade in with the
right.
group. But then you got to get up at like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. So
lots of us don't, right. Lots of us can't go to the opening ceremonies because it's such a long process that everyone's so exhausted the next day. It will actually impact our performance. And that's a big piece too on the para side. I'm not saying that it doesn't tire out able bodies as well, but lots of people, myself included, I can't be out of bed for 8-10 hours a day. My cognitive capacity, my pain and how it gets me and wears me down. I only have a certain part of my day. So there's no way that I can, do an opening ceremony and then be ready to compete the next morning. So there's actually lots of athletes not even showing up to the opening ceremonies because it could affect their performance drastically. Right. And that on the para side, I mean, even for us for closing, do we have time for someone in a wheelchair to actually go back to our residence, wherever we're staying, and shower and get ready? It takes us a lot longer to do everything. I want to look presentable for my country, with all the other athletes. And that's a time of celebration and all of our hard work that we've all put on the table for all of our respective countries. Right. So I don't know. It's a little bit disappointing. I don't want to sort of be a Debbie Downer. I'm so grateful to be going to Paris, but in some ways, this is, for me, my experience is going to be worse than COVID, because at least I was in the Olympic Village then and I was around people. In this case, we had a World Cup last year demo event at this race course we're going to be at, and we stay at a hotel that's close by. All I'm going to see are the other, para-canoe and para-kayak athletes, which is wonderful. But I see that at every World Cup and World Championship. It's going to feel to me like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just another World Cup or World Championships, which again is phenomenal, amazing. But this is sort of the pinnacle event, right? That we all work the hardest for, and we want to feel like we're part of it. So we're kind of a little bit removed from it, and that's kind of, you know, it's kind of been hard to chew on that a little bit for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I do think there's a way to be grateful for the opportunity, but still point out that, you know, this needs to be worked on. This needs to be fixed.
Right.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is becoming an individualized World Championship and World Cup. And Brianna, it's becoming that way even if you are in the village, because it's like you're here, you compete, you go home. And that's just not the way that I envision the Paralympic Games. Right. I can do a bocce event any day of the week and compete against even other countries. I can do that, but I can't say that I've been to the Paralympic Games and learning and being alongside, you know, other athletes while they win medals. Again, greatest memory from Beijing was the fact that I was there when 3 members of Team Canada were on the podium, gold, silver, and bronze, and never will I ever experience that again. And that's one of those things that this generation of para athletes will never get to experience because of the new rules. Anyway, I digress. They were supposed to be positive about you going to Paris, and we are.
And no real issue, right? So
we'll get off the soapbox now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Brianna, we wish you nothing but the best in your competition, and I would love to have you on again post Paralympic Games just to find out how things went and your experience of being in a village/hotel and competition. So best of luck to you, and we're all rooting for you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me again. And yes, look forward to chatting with you guys after the games too.
Awesome. That was Brianna Hennessy, who is a para-canoe athlete and will be going to Paris for the Paralympic Games beginning on August 28th.
The Neutral Zone is sponsored by the Ontario Para Network. Their focus on the growth and development of wheelchair basketball, tennis, and rugby in Ontario.
So last week with the two of you, we had a little bit of a discussion about my niece's horse show that had a coach competing in the same division as some of the athletes she was coaching. I can tell you that we have learned since this past episode that this individual has been removed of all of her points that were accumulated, almost 300 of them, because she should not be riding in this division, because it is, as I learned, for school athletes who are learning how to horse ride. So this coach should not have been in the event, and it was on the organizing committee who should have caught her name being on the list, and they should have removed her. Funny that they say this, because when you go into the barn every week and you say, you know, I'm getting so-and-so's name, and you have to give the coach's name, which the athlete is under, and then they scan down. And so I'm not really sure how 4 or 5 times different parents came in and they said this individual's name and it didn't click. But I digress. These points have been removed, and that's the update for you there for that. I don't think we're going to have more of a conversation on that, as we took quite a bit of time last week. I just wanted to give the final results. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Olympics. I just gave the medal count. I'm curious for you guys at the final weekend, what were some of the highlights that you were able to obtain? Let's start with Cameron and then go straight over to Josh.
Yeah, as far as the final weekend, I was quite impressed. I think it was the last event, and it had nothing to do with Canada. But there was a woman that was able to wear a hijab, and she won the gold medal. And I think she whatever discipline she was in. I think it was the last medal ceremony as well. So, and France has a ban on hijabs. So she's not from France, but I don't know, it's just kind of nice to see her have a hijab and the inclusivity of it all, and everyone should be accepted because it is the Olympics. So I really like that part. And then, of course, Canada, they won the 4x100 relay race, and that was quite exciting too, kind of to wrap up that last week of the Olympics.
For me, I'm a thrower, and so for me, the thing that stood out was that we are kings and queens of the hammer throw after this Olympics. Cameron Rogers, the Canadian female, came in first in the women's hammer throw, and Ethan Katzberg came in the gold medal position for the men's hammer throw. And
raise your hand if you knew that there was such a thing as hammer throw.
Right here, I used to watch it.
Okay.
In fact, I was in a circle one time as a hammer that had been previously thrown and gotten lodged in the netting around the circle, worked its way loose and fell right beside me. So I am very aware of the hammer throw and scared the crap out of me, I can tell you.
And my second question is, who thought Canada was going to win gold for men and women's in hammer throw?
Not I.
Who thought that we were a hammer throw frickin' nation?
That's maybe a little different question, but I am very, very excited for both of them. I got to see Ethan's competition in particular, and it was just fun to watch him because I believe he's 22, so he's just a young kid. And he threw the gold medal winning throw on his very first throw of the competition.
I know.
So it's like, way to harness those emotions, kid. Nice job. And then specifically got to watch his last 3 throws, because what they do in hammer is you throw 3 throws and then they cut the field down to the top 8, and only those 8 move on to make their final 3 throws. And so he had these 3 throws that were all 80 meters plus, which there's an astounding number in and of itself. But his winning throw was over 84 meters, and his last 3 throws of the competition, when they've cut down, and now it's really time to focus and it's time to secure your spot in the medals, he fouled all 3 throws. He picked up his hammer, did his wind up, did his spin, and oh darn, I stepped out of the circle. Oh darn, I stepped out of the circle. Oh darn, I stepped out of the circle. And you could just see his coach in the stands, who's a former medal winner himself in I want to say Dylan Armstrong, but I think that might be the wrong name. I am right? Okay. You saw his coach, Dylan Armstrong, who is also a gold medal winner, but in the shot put. And you just see him and he's like, what are you doing? You got to focus. You've got to make a throw here. And all 3 of his final competition throws are just, whee! Oh, darn, I stepped out of the circle. So I loved his enthusiasm and his joy for being there. It was amazing. And then, top it all off, and he and Summer McIntosh got to be flag bearers for Team Canada, which I'm sure is another conversation we would like to have at some point for different reasons. But yeah, that was probably my favorite moment of the second week, so to speak.
Yeah, so Cameron, I echo your thoughts about the athlete from the Netherlands who got to wear the hijab. She was part of the marathon, which is the final event, and
that's what it was.
She did an incredible job. And actually, this is where I believe that Paris just did everything from an optics point of view, like from the games itself, correctly, because for the first time in history, they did a women's medal ceremony at the closing ceremonies, which was outstanding. And then to have the whole hijab story was also pretty cool as well. So I just think Paris just had their finger on the pulse, of how to optically, do these things correctly, and that was just one of those situations. For me,
well, and they have the sight lines too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's just so many iconic places. Like let's play beach volleyball right outside the friggin' Eiffel Tower. Why don't we? Like, jeez.
And then we'll play the gold medal final in, at 11 p.m. when, oh, look, the Eiffel Tower is sparkling. And it's, it's just, they know how to do the pomp and circumstance, and they did it darn well. It was incredible. For me, the highlights that I would highlight would be Brandy and Melissa winning the first ever medal for Canada in beach volleyball, and that was a silver medal. They fell a bit short, but it got it done for sure. You're
not going to try those names, bro?
No, I'm not. Going first. Listen, I do other gigs, and I tried it, and it was like, nope, shouldn't have done that. And shouldn't have done that, so I'm not doing it here.
Don't even try.
And then Marco Arup claimed the silver medal in the 800-meter race. This result brought Canada to the 26 medal mark, which meant that they broke the record for the highest summer games of medal count. So that's pretty cool. And then oddly, while I was at the provincial championships, I got home like late Saturday night, and we get there and we see that someone by the name of Phil Wizard is going to be competing in the gold medal break dancing final. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess I'll indulge. And when I saw breakdancing, I'm like, I'm probably only going to watch this if a Canadian is going for gold, and that's what happened. And I have to admit that this was a really, really cool final. I mean, it was over in like 10 minutes, but that's fine. It was a really, really cool final, and I really appreciated the art of breakdancing. I just never put it to an art, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I was really blown away, Cameron, by what I saw. It was incredible.
Yeah. Breakdancing, if it's done right, it is incredible what they can do with their bodies and how they move them. I think it was just for this Olympics only. I don't think it's returning in 2028 when the Olympics go to LA. So I don't know if it's a one and done, but I think it's just for Paris. But yeah, breaking, for the most part, it was phenomenal. Just the break dancing. I would never, ever be able to move my bodies in that way. Even if I was able-bodied, I would not be able to move my body in that way. The controversy came with the Australian women's breaking, where she didn't know how to break dance, but somehow she got in the competition. I have to research a bit more on this, but
that would be Rachel Raygun Gunn.
Well, she was just kind of flopping around like a fish out of water, like wanting to get back into the ocean, like. And she was like getting ripped with tons of memes on social media, and then she was getting pretty hurt by those as well. But I don't know. Like the bigger story out of that breaking competition was this Australian breaking participants more so than the gold medals. I just kept every day. I still see it today, and how they're making fun of it. So,
well, I think part of that is that no one could tell if she was legitimately actually there to compete, or if she somehow just convinced the Australian government to send her, because she's actually a 26-year-old professor of cultural studies, I want to say, but.
Certainly not a professional or professor of breaking. I'll tell you that much right now.
Well, I tuned in and just happened to be turning on the coverage when she was competing.
Oh, so you saw it live?
we'll put in quotation marks. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, what in the blank is this that I'm being subjected to? And then I realize, oh, okay, there's a story behind her. And then I did see the competition with Phil Wizard, and it was better. But I said this to one of my other friends online. I said, I'm glad he enjoyed the breaking competition because it was not my thing at all.
And that's fine.
I did not enjoy it. I didn't like it. I see the cultural value of it, but to me, it's not a sport. I'm sorry. It's not. Yeah. And I think the one thing we overlook about the Olympics was that there was a surfing competition over in Tahiti. And how much did we really hear about it? Surfing.
Oh, surfing competition.
You ask friend of the show, Catherine Vatcher, she was all over that. All over it. I don't know why she started getting involved in watching this. I think it was because she realized that it was in Tahiti and there was a whole thing and she got enamored by them being on cruise ships and like the whole that. Yeah.
Oh, so she was watching the surfing. I thought you were talking about the breaking.
No, the surfing.
Trying to keep up the conversation here.
Sorry. Well, welcome to the podcast where we haven't got a clue what we're doing. No, I'm totally kidding. Yeah, no, she was totally enamored by the surfing and it was just like it was interesting to watch. They had like half an hour. I'm not going to get into like the details of this because I know nothing. But they had basically two competitors for the final, and they had up to 30 minutes to wait for good waves to come in, quote unquote. And out of that 30 minutes, only 3 good waves came in. I thought golf was slow. The gold medal final for surfing was slow. I was told that the semifinals were better and the bronze medal game was better. And I said, Catherine, no moss on that one. Sorry. Can't help you. Not a sport that I would see myself watching for 30 minutes. The other story that I liked from a humor point of view was the pole vaulter from the French pole vaulter who got hit in the junk with the pole, and that was in every meme in every situation that you could see for days after. And
I'm tired of seeing that picture
competing
too,
at home in his home stadium. Oh dear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, just too bad.
I thought you were going to say the guy that, I think it was a guy that was going to do the long jump and then he just bailed and went underneath the pole and just kind of fell on the mat. And I don't know if he did that more than once, but I keep seeing that one too. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know that.
And then there's the Estonian guy who probably wasn't from this Olympics, but he runs up, he plants his pole, and then the pole just basically throws him back the way he came. And it's like, oh, that doesn't look good.
No, it's
somebody's got to put together like a reel or a montage of all of the, I don't want to call it mistakes, but just all the fails, Olympic fails, and put those in like a 2 or 3 minute montage and get some laughs out of that.
For sure. You're assuming that it would all fit in 2 or 3 minutes. I think.
Well, I'm sure, of 100 years of Olympics or however long it's been, I'm sure it's a hell of a lot more than that, but...
Heck, you could probably do that with just the steeplechase.
True. That's very true.
I do ask how some of these events got created. I really do.
Well, softball wasn't there, I don't think, this year.
No, I didn't see baseball this time.
No, and that was the last Olympics.
But they put in breaking. I don't understand that.
So every Olympics has the ability to add like an event that makes it their own. So when we were in Beijing for the last summer games in 2020, 2021, that's why you saw softball there, because they wanted to add that as their sport. And then France decides, let's add breaking as ours, because that's what we're going to do. But yeah, that's
artistic expression.
That's the answer as to why sometimes you see certain sports and sometimes you don't, because some of them are not in the category of fixture, quote unquote. So that's why that is the way it is. So I'm gonna ask you a question here, and I'm gonna give you 3 options, and you can go off the board if you want to, but I think the 3 options will fit.
Us off the board? You must be kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm already thinking, okay, how can I go off the board?
Would you consider this a success? And how good of a success was it? Was it a great success? Was it a good success? Or was it not good at all? Go to Josh first for his answer.
We're speaking about the Olympic
Canadians.
Yeah,
Canadians.
the Canadian results. I don't think it's a very weak limb at all. I'm going to say it was a huge success. We've done better than we have at any other Summer Olympics other than ones that were boycotted. I think 29 medals is very respectable. I think we saw medals won where we didn't expect to win medals. And I'll point to the boxing. I'll point to the fencing. And
Judo,
yes, judo was another one. Alicia Newman in, I want to say the pole vault is another one. She came home with a silver. And then there were other events where we were expected to medal, like the one that started the Olympics, which we haven't brought up yet, the soccer, where we didn't medal. And so from that standpoint, I think we did very well. And I'm very proud of our country after this Olympics.
Yeah, I'm very proud. We've gotten the most medals ever at an unboycotted Olympics. 8 gold, which I think is a record for Summer Olympics as well. So I think it was a phenomenal success for Team Canada overall. Of course, if you want to really dig into it, you can always say, oh, well, we should have got a medal here and we didn't. But you can always go on the flip side and say, hey, we shouldn't here and we got it. So I think it was a great success by Canada.
I heard on one station that I was watching, either TSN or Sportsnet, that we had 81 top 10 finishes, I believe it was. So, I mean, if you're in the top 10 in the world, you're doing something right, in my opinion.
So you guys are all full of rainbows and sunshine.
For now.
And I am too. But this is where I'm going to go a little bit under the bar. I'm going to put it at good. There was one sport that it was jammed down my throat that this team's going to be in the gold medal game. It's a guarantee. We're going to be there. Devin Haru came on and said, I think, they're going to win the gold medal. I think they're going to beat the United States. And then womp womp, we get out in against France in the quarterfinals. And that's the men's basketball team. And for me, that's what tips it from great to good, is because I was sold so heavily with all the different media. We're going to win the gold. We're going to win the gold or silver. And we didn't even get there. And so because it was so jammed down my throat and I needed to be all kumbaya, basketball's going to do well. And then they fell out in the quarterfinal. And it's like, oh, shades of 2000. That's for me what tips it down from great to good. And I recognize, guys, that I'm splitting hairs, but that's honestly my honest thought.
I think you are splitting hairs because when you look at all of the events that we shouldn't have even got a medal in, to lose that one medal from basketball, I don't think you can say it wasn't a great Olympics, considering Canada got way more medals than we ever have at a Summer Olympics, more golds. Like usually I'm the guy that's playing the bad cop here, and I think you're doing the bad cop. But today I'm going to be Mr. Sunshine, and I'm going to have to call you on it to say I think it was a great Olympics, and you can't just take the one event out of all of the other events that we did so well in to say that it wasn't a great Olympics.
Team sports are very, very difficult because every member of the team has to bring their A game. And what we saw is that Canada got into that game against France, and maybe it was the crowd, maybe it was the moment and the magnitude of it, but they didn't perform. And teams are like that, unfortunately. So I understand where you're coming from, But I agree with Cameron. I think that we have to look more broadly than that. And yes, it was jammed down our throats to a degree, but the soccer was also jammed down our throats. And then we had the whole cheating scandal and the drones and all the stupidity there from the coaching staff.
And the women's soccer, they did amazing to win 3 games in a row to get into the playoffs. Like, that's a success story, even though they didn't medal.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would put that in a category of a success for the women's soccer. We talked about it last week. The sanction was too steep. It was just, there was so much wrong with that. I just think that because the basketball was so sold to me as like, this is what it's going to be. You're going to go all the way to Saturday. You're going to this. And then we didn't even get past Tuesday in the final week. And it's like, oh, but I wanted so much more. And this team was so much better than the 2000 Sydney. And then it turns out, no, they weren't, because they got knocked out by the same country. If my memory serves me correctly,
in the same
obviously
round,
not
right.
the same. Yeah, I mean, that's the part, Cameron, and I don't mean to poo-poo the rest of the Olympians who did great, but that's the part where I'm like, yeah, but you sold this to me, and then I didn't even get to, eat the entree. Like, I didn't even get to do it because I couldn't get anywhere past Tuesday. At least if they beat France, then I could have seen, okay, well, they won a medal. Okay, now I'm being a bit of a...
I think we're all forgetting how good the other teams are as well. Like, France is a really good team. The States was a really good team. Like, they had some really good teams. And for Canada to go as far as they did in even these Olympics... Like, whoever thinks of Canada as a powerhouse in basketball, yes, we invented the frickin' sport, but we're never, ever known as a powerhouse. It's always the States. Brazil, I think, is, or maybe not Brazil, but Italy. I think they're known as a powerhouse as well, the Italians. Like, there's
Greece probably should have done better than what they did.
Yeah, like with the guy that I can never pronounce his last name. Canadians beat that team, Greece.
Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, that's the dude. I can never say his last name. But yeah, like I think that we did like phenomenal in that tournament. It's just unfortunate we couldn't get past France. But who knows, if you keep the same team together in 4 years from now, maybe they'll learn to play a little bit better together. And maybe they'll go a little bit further in the tournament.
Apparently, I'm just bitter.
You're bitter and old.
I don't know.
You're... Got to concentrate on all the 27 other medals we won rather than the one we lost.
I did see something interesting just now, gentlemen, from our friend Devin Haru. He just tweeted out that 7 in 10 Canadians tuned in for CBC or Radio Canada's coverage of Paris 2024. Canadians consumed a record-breaking 24.3 million hours on CBC and Radio Canada's digital and streaming platforms, an increase of over 170% over Tokyo and 121% over Beijing.
Okay, quick poll. Why do you guys think that was? I have an answer, but why do you guys think everybody watched more of it? Josh, go, and then Cameron, and then I'll respond.
I think it is a combination of more content in more places. So regardless of what you prefer, you can still find what you want. I think that part of it has to do with Summer McIntosh being as prolific as she was, winning 4 medals. I think those are probably the top reasons.
I think also the time difference. It wasn't as bad as the last couple of Olympics. So,
that's true.
When you have the gold medals, a lot of them for swimming were at 2:30 in the afternoon. So I think a lot of people were tuning in. But I like the point you made, Josh. I think it's on more platforms now. So even people at work, they're tuning into all of their phones and, going on there. To be able to watch it at their desk or whatever. And hopefully the boss doesn't walk by and see you watching the, event or whatever the case is. So I think those 2 factors are the biggest as to probably why the numbers are so much larger.
Cameron, you hit from my thought, you hit it right on the head. I think the time difference made a difference, and I also would say to you that more people work from home now than they have in the past, and so people are able to put it on a second screen on the computer or put it on their TV in the background, and they watch summer do summer things, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it goes. I think that's the big portion of why we see what we've seen here in that regard. And when you do that and you put it all together, that's the way it goes. And I know my next point here is a little bit on the bias side because of the people that we've had on the program, but also the people that we're going to continue to have on the program. CBC does an outstanding job at broadcasting the Olympics. Outstanding job. Like, they have reporters, and Cameron, you've said this on other podcasts, they have reporters that just know what they're doing. And this is no disrespect to TSN or Sportsnet, but CBC really does buy in to the Olympics, and they literally drown you in a positive way in the positive parts of Canada and the stories that exist. And if somebody's going for a gold medal, they're going to cut out or cut away from a situation that might not be as important at the time and go to that gold medal. They do an outstanding job, Cameron, and I think that's a big part.
Well, it's a huge part of it. If you have a great team that's communicating to you and presenting it to you, and CBC has been doing this for years. It's only been lately, and I don't know how many years, that TSN and
since Vancouver, since
TSN and Sportsnet have kind of jumped into the ring a bit, but CBC's been doing this for years, so they know how to do it. We have been absolutely spoiled by having Brian Williams for many years, and then Scott Russell, and then I'm sure they're going to pick a phenomenal candidate to take over for Scott Russell as well. On the ground, Devin Haru, he's been doing phenomenal on the ground and getting those interviews and getting the stories that really, touch your heart and get you to cry and, all of those touching stories. So,
and they're also very good at taking household names that have been in these sports and putting them as the commentators for each sport. So, for example, for diving, you had Jenna Bell and, his name, Alex Despatie as your commentators. People that are household names that people know. Oh, yeah, they competed at the Olympics, before. And so you have that expertise there to tell you, this is a great dive and here's why, as opposed to just somebody commentating about it who maybe doesn't handle the sport all the time. That's one thing that I really enjoyed. And even on their panels, like the CBC evening panel had Perdita Felicien, one of the McMorris brothers, and a former water polo athlete whose name completely escapes me, along with Andy Petrillo. But Andy just basically teed things up, and the athletes were the ones walking you through everything and going through those events with you.
But
it's amazing.
But that's what makes a good host, is somebody that tees something up, and then the panelist, hint, hint, nudge, nudge to my panelists, because they do this all the time for me.
We bring the goods, is what you're saying.
They hit it out the park for you. Yeah,
I was going to say,
exactly.
Fishing for compliments.
And so that,
well, that too.
But that's what makes it, is if you have a good host who sits there, puts it on the tee, like Andy Petrillo, to me, is one of the best in the business of hosting a panel and being able to see where that goes and what happens. And so it was a great Olympics. And funny enough, as I said that this Olympics was good for Canada, today's episode title is Resounding Success, and I was the one that put the title out. So that's just,
on the back,
food for thought on my thought on this. But that's the way it goes, and the Paralympics will be around the corner. And I think, and Cameron, you will be the one that will work on this, but I think we're trying to get Devin Haru on before the Paralympic Games, because there's lots of stories that I would like to poke him about and go, tell me why, please. Why was this the way that was? And so we'll get Devin on for another whole hour, it feels like, and enjoy that. But the Paralympics will begin on the 28th of August. And just in closing, Scott Russell is a consummate professional. That guy never said goodbye at the closing ceremonies because he knew darn well, no, I still got a job to do, and that's the Paralympic Games. And I love him for it, for not saying goodbye to the Olympic audience and saying, I'm going to do the Paralympics. And basically, if you want to hear my goodbye message, come on September the 8th, and that's when you're going to hear it. So very well done by CBC for sure. That is the end of our program for this week. I would like to thank Josh Watson, Cam Jenkins. I'd also like to thank our technical producer, Mark Aflalo. Stay tuned for next week, because you just never know what happens when you enter the neutral zone. Be safe, be well.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.